You weren't alive in the 1960s. Or if you were likely on a lot of drugs and don't remember it at all. You were probably spinning Moby Grape vinyls and dipping your pet cat Pookie in tie-dye, but on the off chance that you, dear listener, are a senior citizen, you've probably been a consumer of Archie comics at some point or another. Starring a ginger boy named, you guessed it, Archie. The strips have often featured his high school hijinks and taking his girlfriend Veronica to the drive-in movies and deal with some abusive dildo who pretended to be a monster before being unmasked and revealed to be a skeleton, if I'm remembering correctly. Probably not. Anyway, long before the gorillas were jelly beans in Harambe's womb, the Archies were their own animated rock and roll band, named after Archie himself because he's such a pretentious little dick. Strange thing is that they had a real-life #1 radio song hit in 1969, of all years, called Sugar, Sugar. That's right. They were bigger than the Beatles, the Stones, the Monkees, and Ace of Base, all wrapped into one. That's pretty messed up that a cartoon band could accomplish that in such a productive era, but we live in a world in which Donald John Trump is president, and I have no eyes. As for me, I own a record shop in downtown Riverdale. I was inspired by the success of the Archies to pursue my own musical dreams, but my psychedelic disco punk band failed to chart after I farted during our first live performance on the Ed Sullivan Show. Dejected, I became an addict to gin and tonic and started selling used cars to hookers before recalling my first love, vinyl. Alexa, turn the page. In my heart. Thank you, doll. My store does an okay amount of business, though much of the time people just stop in to use the bathroom. I guess it all started one day while I was sorting a stack of Aardvark's records. A customer unlike any I'd ever seen before. Orange hair, bushy eyebrows, googly eyes, freckles, and that smile. Oh, no, I had seen him before. I took a split second to decide to hide that I did recognize him for what it's worth. I started humming some Neil Young harmonica tunes, and then to my horror, it happened. I farted right in the middle of my own store. I was so embarrassed. My anxiety disorder kicked in, and then all those memories. I could recognize that smell from miles away. The bright-haired gentleman commented to my horror. 1971. The Ed Sullivan Show! Well, that did it. Reflexes kicked in, and I broke into a sprint, the smell of flatulence following me like a slug's trail. I ran like a flock of seagulls, down the aisle, off into the corner, into the stock room. I slammed off the lights, counted to 5, then 7, then 6, and let out a prayer. Everything's going to be okay. 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 And I paused. Breathed in, breathed out. Felt a little tired, but I calmed down. Clearly the surprising visit had come to a close, and the man had either gone and bought something or used the bathroom, like so many others before and had gone home. I got up and reached out a hand to turn the lights back on until it happened. There was the sound of a chopped wooden door. The light of the showroom snuck in like the harsh light of day, and a freckled, potched-marked, middle-aged ginger man face. "Here's Archie!" he yelled. Fresh out of options, I let out a shrill shriek of terror before scrambling toward the fire exit, tripping in the dark, though I would have done so if the light was on anyway. Seeing as how I have no eyes, no pun intended. Anyway, I should probably let you know why a real-life version of Archie Andrews would be so intent on murdering me in the first place. Alexa? Thank you. I have brain problems. I tried to join the army back during the Vietnam War, but they wouldn't have me. They said I was too disheveled. This left me with lots of free time, which I used to develop my band's sound. I guess the real trouble began when I started recruiting members. It was hard to find a drummer. Everybody wanted to sing or play guitar. I almost gave up and considered quitting my day job and becoming an itinerant homeless man who told scary stories about real-life consequences till I found him. Oh, bittersweet memories. Riverdale High School cafeteria, wearing his inside-out fedora, all cut into style like the kids used to back in the days. "The name's Junkhead," he proclaimed, biting into a hamburger and tapping the fold-up table with the jingle-jangle beat. We started hanging out together. Us and his dog. Hot Dog. He used to feed hot dogs. Hot Dog. Now, Junkhead was big into candy. Nose candy. That's why they called him Junkhead. In return for playing drums in concert, I would supply him with blow. It wasn't that I don't like girls, the jocular young man would proclaim. I just like drugs better. Our band was named after me, but our other guitarist? He was the popular kid in school. Orange hair, freckles, football letterman jacket. Sugar, sugar, do-do-do-do-do-do. He would sing to the groupies while we practiced, and he fucked. You are my candy girl, and you got me wanting you. He wrote the song about our bandmate, his best buddy, Junkhead. And as long as we fed him more pixie dust, the hits kept coming. Till one day, terror. Terrifying terror occurred. Terrifying terror that is terrible. Thank you. The manager told us that Junkhead couldn't go. He couldn't perform. In fact, he couldn't be there at all. And no one had the slightest clue why. Well, we didn't have drum machines back then, so I went off in search of Junkhead. In fact, I went to his house, and that's when things took a turn for the worse. I knocked on the door, and there was no answer. I yelled out his name, and there was no answer. I yelled that I brought over hamburgers and crack, still nothing. I considered calling the police, but then I remembered in the movies about how they often have the key under the doormat. I looked. I didn't find a key. I found pixie dust. Cocaine powder. I followed the trail where it could take me. Into the backyard. Across the bottom of a swimming pool. Up the ladder, back out. In the hot dog's doghouse. There I found a handwritten note. I'm at the concert now. It read in a handwritten style that I now recognize as an italicized size 12 Comic Sans font, but written in blood. Didn't that just beat all? Realizing that everything had straightened itself out, I brushed the cocaine powder off of my sweatpants and headed back to Riverdale High for the show. I was backstage looking for all the fellas, but then I suddenly tripped on a cable. That was strange. I didn't remember a cable being there before. I got back up and took a couple steps and went around a corridor. Then I slipped on another cable. Then I got back up and I went around another corridor. Then I slipped upon another cable. This happened about a dozen times until I took one fall too many. I hit my head. Then I blacked out.
It's all just a bunch of cables, Thomas.
A hypnotic voice in my head proclaimed. I was scared. This wasn't like any dream that I'd ever dreamed before. Everything around me was colored like a spiral fluorescent kaleidoscope that rotated full circle. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a faggot, cigarette. But to my shock and awe, what was actually in my hand was a candy cigarette.
How sweet is it? How sweet is it?
An ominous voice boomed from above.
Was it all worth it, Thomas?
The voice inquired. Shut the fuck up. I barked back. Okay, I will. It responded, fading out dramatically. This didn't feel right. My spine kept tingling in horror because I realized I was alone in a hallucinogenic kaleidoscope universe with nothing but a candy cigarette. Then I woke up. I suppose at this point you would expect that it was all resolved. Well, maybe in a sense, but how about you shut up and listen, have a little patience, I'll tell you what really fucking happened. So, the doctor told me that I'd been out of it for several weeks. In fact, it was a miracle that I survived. It turned out that the guy from earlier had caught up to me and whacked me in the head with a pickaxe. I had forgotten who I was and what I did for a living, what my background was, but just like life as you know it, it was all just a dream. I lived in a dumpster behind the record store, and I had startled the owner because I broke in and acted as if I ran the joint. He couldn't find his shotgun, which he often used to get back at criminals and pilferers, so he whacked me in the head with an axe. Not the first time that happened in my life. I was assured that despite my vandalization of private property, he would be charged with attempted manslaughter, not that that helped my medical condition any. Despite my miraculous recovery, the doctor seemed a little disappointed with me.
Thomas,
He began, shaking his head.
Drug-free is the way to be. junkhead.
Well, shucks. Sugar, sugar.
Do 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 do.